Took me.
All right. Well, good morning. My name is John Rennie. I'm the director of the Merritt, Becker Jr. UNO Transportation Institute. And I want to welcome you to our first SMART lecture. This morning we have our first guest speaker, Mr. Billy App, Jr., who's CEO of J.W. Allen and Company. I'm going to introduce him in just a second. I just want to spend a couple minutes talking about the Transportation Institute and our new Masters of Transportation program, which is a professional program. The UNO Transportation Institute is a institute at UNO that is engaged in all types of transportation research, workforce development, and outreach, professional outreach, including passenger transportation and freight transportation. And we have a number of full-time staff, faculty, and graduate students that work with us, and we specialize in sustainable transportation. We specialize in maritime and ports planning and transportation issues, bicycle and pedestrian issues, public transit issues, land use and transportation issues. And we have been designated by the federal government as a University Transportation Center, that's the part of the U.S. Department of Transportation. That program has formal partnerships with Texas A&M, the University of Maryland, and the University of Arkansas. And then we also work with a lot of local and statewide projects with the Louisiana Department of Transportation Development, the New Orleans Regional Planning Commission, the Port of New Orleans, and then other organizations. So without further ado, or actually with further ado, I want to just take a moment to describe our new Masters in Transportation, which is a professional hybrid program. And this lecture is part of that series, is that what we are trying to do is to outreach to offer education, higher education in a modern format with a 33 credit Masters in Transportation program where classes are offered in both a hybrid online and in-person format. So we're going to be bringing in guest speakers like this that engage in industry, because we are very interested and very committed to showing how our program here is linked with the industry. So we get leaders from the industry to come in and to talk about what the transportation industry is, in how the education that you're embarking on here at UNO will serve you once you graduate from this program. And in doing so, we are offering these hybrid classes where students will interact through the internet and in person in intensive formats where they come in for a couple of days a semester and interact with each other to build that network. So it's only fitting that our first speaker in this is one of the most important leaders in the transportation industry in Louisiana. Mr. Billy App started his career with J.W. Allen and Company back in 1961.
Tell you what, let's just do like Ed McMahon used to say, "Here's Johnny."
All right.
I'm gonna give you everything in that presentation.
We're gonna let Billy describe his own background.
And I'm always cutting people off, so.
And thank you for being our first speaker.
Yes. Anyway, it's good to be here in front of y'all, and when John called me, I asked him first, what did he want me to talk about? And I am going to get to an introduction here in a second. And my wife also has always told me, Billy, you can't say your name in 10 minutes. She says, people here, get to the point. I'm going to get to the point. But anyway, right now, when he asked me, what do you want me to talk about? And he says, what I want you to do is I want you to sell people on your industry. I want them at the end of your presentation to say, I really want to look into this industry that this man got into. I gave him a bio that was really short. It's just who I was, very simple. But what I belong to is about that long. A lot of associations and things like that that I'll get to in later in the presentation that's I feel is very important, you know. But he asked about a title, and I said, title? I said, I'm not good at that. I said, you got all that education out there, give it to them, you know. So he did something, and he hit right on it too, because I really feel that way. And he titled it, My Fantastic Ride, Building a Global Logistics Company. Okay, now, let me start off right now with building that global logistics company, okay? I happen to be at the top for the last 25 years, okay? But let me tell you what, you know, I hired people 35, 40 years ago that are still working for us, you know? And I also had, when I was out running around doing these different things I'll be sharing with you, I had a guy back in the office named Lester Orth, who's not with us today. He died of a heart attack maybe 15 years ago. But he was holding the fort down, you know, because you can, when I share some of this stuff, you say, well, who's running the show, you know? So they're all people. But anyway, I made some notes. I want you to know also that I'm going to be sharing with you, you know, my 53 years working at J.W. Allen & Company. You know, only job I ever had, only wife I ever had. I guess I don't like change, you know. But, you know, I'm going to be sharing these things, and the first thing I wanted to tell you, I already told you my name, and like I said, I went to work for J.W. Allen & Company in 1963. And J.W. Allen Company is today, it is a family-owned global logistics provider based in New Orleans, actually Kenner. And like I said, it was established in 1932, specializing in freight forwarding, customs brokerage, and providing door-to-door transportation solutions. Door-to-door. I mean, that means exactly what it says, you know, door-to-door. But I'll get into the details later. That's where I go off track and get in trouble. In simplest terms, what I do, freight forwarding and customs brokers, is the exact same thing as the travel agents, okay? We are doing the total logistics for cargo for as much as the client wants. The client may want us only to do paperwork, and he'll handle all the logistics, and we'll do that for him. Or he wants us to handle it from somewhere in China or South America to somewhere in the United States. Or it could be from foreign to foreign. And most freight forwarders, I say most, and custom brokers are non-asset based, meaning we contract with carriers for the movement of freight, as I said, much as the travel agents do. A freight forwarder and a custom broker is fully integrated into all parts of the supply chain when arranging door-to-door service. What truly sets the custom broker freight forwarder apart is a depth of understanding and knowledge of government regulations, especially today since 9/11. We interact with, I think there's 32 agencies or something like that, but we interact so much with CBP, Customs and Border Protection, the Federal Maritime Commission, all these acronyms, FMC, FDA, Food and Drug Administration, USDA, EPA, and CPSC. We not only have to know transportation, but we also have to know what our customers' products are in order to provide and give them guidance through the federal regulations. And like I said, I believe I said this, I'm not going to be giving you, hot freight forward. What do you need to do to be a freight forwarder? You know, I'm going to go over with you kind of the evolution of freight forwarding since I joined the firm 52 years ago or something like that to where it is today. And I said, I think I'm going to tell you where it might be going, but I don't think anybody knows where it's going. It changes so fast. And then I'm going to give you an overview looking from 30,000 feet, you know, of the freight forwarding custom brokerage. And I'm going to give you the same thing looking at the steamship end or the transportation end. And then I'm going to get back down to what J.W. Allen has done to be successful. I can't tell you what everybody else has done. I can only tell you what we did. But we are successful and we've done a very good job. And we did it probably a little bit different than some companies because we are a different company, and you'll see that as I go through the. But anyway, when I joined J.W. Allen and Company, most companies were single entities, meaning you had a freight forwarder who had his own shop, didn't do imports, didn't do custom brokerage work. Then you had customs brokers, okay? And then you had the steamship lines, which I'll touch on later. Now, back then, you got to remember that this was probably 20 years after World War II, and we were a manufacturing and exporting company. I told Christy when I got up here, I said, everything, as I'm listening, I'll be sitting back there Googling something, checking the guy, you know. Well, I'm going to be close on most things, but you can Google me, okay, and check it. But I think back then, like I said, we were an exporting company, a country, as you hear so often in all the political, commercial. And I would believe that back then, we were exporting probably 80%, and the import side was doing about 20%. That's when I joined the firm in 1963. In the late 70s and early 80s, the multinational companies came into existence. Who are they? Well, I gave two examples. One is Panalpina, a Swiss company, and the other one is Kuhn and Nagel, a German company. They came to town. Now remember, these guys go back to the Vikings or the Roman Empire. You know, I mean, they've got some history, and they've been moving freight for hundreds of years, these countries. And here in the United States is a neophyte as compared to them. But they moved into our territory and created some havoc. I mean, we didn't go to guns, anything like that, but wow, they came in. And in fact, Panalpina had an ad back then. Panalpina advertised in all the trade magazines, 16,000 employees worldwide. And here back then, J.W. Allen had 5, you know. And on 6 continents, we're in J.W. Allen and Company in New Orleans with over 500 offices. So, you know, are we going to survive? The rest of the story will tell you. Well, I'm standing here now, so we did survive, okay. In the late 90s, the express couriers came in. And express couriers, Federal Express, mainly DHL and UPS. They recognized the profits that these little guys were making, you know, handling big shipments. I mean, we handled some freight. I mean, big shipments. And we were making money. You know, if you're good, you can make money in this job. You know, we were making money. And they recognized the profits in moving big shipments as well as containers. And they moved into our feeding grounds by offering to privately held companies who were doing the work nice packages to buy them out. You know, a lot of my friends took the bucks. If the family businesses, and I say family businesses because most of them are just privately held, grandfather might have started it, the dad took over, and the kids are in the business. So much like my daughter Christy, you know, except I'm third owner, and Christy is my daughter, you know, who I think one day when I fall over, because I ain't retiring, you know, she wants to step in there, and she's good, she will. But anyway, the family businesses were to survive. They needed to adapt and invest heavily into automation. John, I apologize because I was on my calculator, but I just kind of, how much money have we spent on automation? And I took a shot at it. Now, you can Google this if you want, but I'm going to tell you what J.W. Allen spent on automation, okay? But seriously, I bet you over the last 25 years, I believe that we probably spent somewhere around $500,000 for a small shot on automation. And we have automated. And in order to compete, these family businesses had to invest heavily into automation and offer the services that were being offered by the new competitors. And the services were, I said before, customs brokerage in one shop, freight forwarding in another. You got to bring them together, because the customers wanted one-stop shopping. In addition to that, you needed, I got to say right now, she stuck some things, the slides as you get down the road that I didn't see till this morning. They're good, but they kind of give you an idea who the company is, which is a fun place to work for, and you'll see it in some of these slides. We also need to become IATA agents, which is basically you have the license to handle the air freight. The next thing that came in, you needed to be a non-vessel operating common carrier. And they refer to them quickly today as NVO. It's NVOCC, non-vessel operating common carriers. And what that is 35 years ago when the containers came in, and I'm gonna get to the containers on the steamship side, they didn't want to handle less than container freight. They didn't want to handle that purse, which might, something the size of that purse that might be somebody's suitcase. They didn't want to handle that. They didn't want to handle anything less than a trailer load. They didn't want to be bothered with all the small packages. So they opened the door. And today, they wished they would have never opened the door. But they allowed freight forwarders like J.W. Allen and Company get licensed through the Federal Maritime Commission to handle freight. A non-vessel operating common carrier has to follow all the rules that the big ship owners follow, okay? And what we simply do is move these shipments on our paperwork in a little bitty spot on the major carrier's vessel. However, when they open that door, the NVOCCs today probably control, now you can catch me on this one because I'm pulling this out, but I would think they probably control 50 to 60% of the freight on these big vessels. Now they're paying for it and all that stuff, but they control a tremendous amount of freight. And they only got in there because the steamship lines didn't want to be bothered with the nuisance shipments. We got involved in trucking. You needed to get involved in trucking, warehousing. And one of the most important things we needed to get involved in was alliances. If J.W. Allen and Company was going to compete with a Panalpina, and we were going to do door-to-door transportation that they were advertising, that would be, and without us doing it, they would be taking the business from us because our customers wanted door-to-door transportation. Excuse me for 1 minute. That wasn't the script. But anyway, the door-to-door transportation, it was necessary to form alliances. And what the freight forwarders did, there was a group out there, and there's many of them today, but the one that I'm a charter member of for over 16 years is the World Cargo Alliance. And what we did was found a network of freight forwarders kind of the size of J.W. Allen that would handle our business for us in China and Singapore and places like that. And we get together with that group once a year in either China or Thailand and sit down across a table with the people that are handling our freight for us, and these people assemble all the time. And today, with the business that we do door to door, this network is more important to us than our telephone, because it's that important. Now for the evolution of the maritime industry. When I came to work at J.W. Allen and Company, John, is that a glass of something, water, or anything I can get? Excuse me. Evolution of the maritime industry. When I came to work for J.W. Allen and Company, there wasn't a thing called a container, okay? I mean, today everything moves by containers, okay? And I came to work, everything was handled by hand. One of the businesses that J.W. Allen handled was tobacco. And I mean thousands of tons of tobacco we handled. And it moved in something called a hogshead, a big old barrel that looked like a hogshead. And it didn't fit anywhere except in a rail car and on the ship. And, but we handled that business. It all came down by rail. And the docks in New Orleans they were active docks from Poland Avenue, which is up on the Industrial Canal, all the way down to Henry Clay, which is Audubon Zoo. Okay, and every spot there where the aquarium is today, where all the river walk and all that stuff was docks, active working docks. And when you come to work in the morning, the cars were lined up 3 deep. The public belt with spot cars 3 deep. There was that much freight moving. Ships were lined up at Chalmette at Anchorage, waiting for a berth. Things were booming, but it was all break bulk. The ships would come in and stay for a week, loading the cargo piece by piece. You know, container ships come in for 5 or 6 hours, and they go on and load just as much freight. So that's what was going on. The railroads were busy. Every morning, the Port of New Orleans, or the labor force that went out, and I Googled this, and I think I'm pretty close on it, but they put 6,000 workers out every morning on the docks of New Orleans doing stevedoring. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol.
Excuse me, let me take a break here a second. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, and excuse me. Now, the work that they put out went from Poland Avenue, I say to Nashville Avenue, but actually then the longshoremen handled the cargo and the vessels for the grain elevators and the chemical plants and all that stuff going all the way up almost to Baton Rouge. They controlled that freight. The International Longshoremen's Association at one time was the strongest union around, you know. So anyway, they put out, every major steamship line was in New Orleans, you know. And if the steamship line wasn't there, and I say every major, I mean every major steamship line had an office in New Orleans or an agent that handled that work for them. We were busy. Houston? What is Houston? You know, Miami. What is Miami? We were in control, you know. And then things changed, you know. Then things really started to change because a guy named Malcolm McLean come in, and Malcolm McLean did a tremendous job with a company called McLean Trucking, which was a trucking company. And then he went on to form a company called Sealand Service. But what he did first was he had his trucking company, and he was wasting money getting his trucks from up east, like New Jersey, down to Houston. So he started loading his whole trucks, which was the truck and the trail all connected on some type of ship that he designed a little bit to carry this and carry it down coastwise, I think either down to the South Atlantic and all the way over to Houston, you know. And then he got that idea and started to work it, you know. And he got together and designed some ships that could actually have cells where you can put the containers in. And he figured a way to, let's not ship the wheels, we'll just have wheels when we get there. And in 1966, 3 years after I went to work for J.W. Allen, that's where I'm saying, you know, wow, how's it going? He sailed his first vessel out of New Jersey, New York, going to Europe. And today, container is the only way. You know, I mean, it's, of course they have the bulk ships, the neo bulk ships, and the bulk steel and stuff like that. They can't go into containers, but they have designed the containers to handle Caterpillar tractors, everything, you know, so you put everything in a container, and that's how it's going. Poultry used to go break bulk, now it's going containers. Also, too, these old ships that I was talking about, they used to start off like in Tampa, Florida, go to Mobile, one ship, Tampa, Florida, Mobile, and each company had their own ship. Then it come over to New Orleans, come up the river, and then it go to Galveston, go to Houston, go to Brownsville, and maybe Corpus Christi, Texas, were all seaports and loading cargo, Now that's a thing of the past. The container ships comes in, like to the Port of New Orleans, MSC line I'm using as an example, and they go down to either Kingston or Freeport, to discharge their containers. And the containers that were loaded here in the Gulf get to Freeport, where there are other container ships coming in from all over the world, where they hit the dock and are automatically transferred out like that, taken off, gone to the rest of the world. And that's how the ocean transportation has evolved today. Also, two consolidations. The number of steamship lines were 100, or more than that. And they have consolidated. Like, for instance, Sealand, who is the leader, Maersk, a Danish company, bought them, The two largest container carriers in the world, I believe, I know Maersk is number one, but I believe MSC is second. And then some more consolidations of CGM, a French company, and they've consolidated these things. And all these other steamship lines that used to have vessels, they have slot charters on these big vessels that belong to Maersk, and they pay Maersk so much to carry their freight. And they advertise, Hapag-Lloyd or whatever it may be, but actually, they're actually on a Maersk vessel going to the destination. People don't really realize that until there's an insurance claim and you find out that every steamship line you had is on the same vessel, But anyway, and the carriers that really survived were the carriers that were in the niche markets, and like a Seaboard, Marine, and they do that. So anyway, I got to move on because my wife is right, I talk too much. But anyway, the J.W. Allen story, like I said, John said that, how did you get from, being the office boy to a CEO, And I want to tell you right now that we're a fun company to work for. I dress like this because I'm going to be on TV or something like that, But most of the time, we're a lot more casual, But I'm usually the last to leave, and if I go into the kitchen and I smell garbage can stinking or something, what the hell is it? They didn't change this today, so I'll pick it up, bag it, and take it out to the dumpster, Yeah, I'm the CEO, but I'm a worker. I always say I work for J.W. Allen Company, and I do. But anyway, going back, this is a story that you can, but the founder of the company, Joseph Webster Allen. John, do this for me when I'm starting to get on your time there. But Joseph Webster Allen was from Nashville, Tennessee. He was an executive with the L&N Railroad, the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. And a lot of people don't know this, but back then, the railroads would offer rates from any ramp, like the tobacco that I'm talking about. Prior to 1932, Mr. Allen worked for the L&N Railroad, and he handled all these tobacco companies. He handled pine tree product companies like Crosby Chemicals and people like that. And he had a railroad department that handled cargo from any ramp, and not ramp, but any track where there was a warehouse where you can load a car, and they would handle it all the way to the customer in Switzerland or Europe or something like that. The railroads had contracts with the steamship lines. They were acting as freight forwarders, and it didn't work. They handled for many years, but it didn't work, so they shut it down. So Mr. Allen in 1932 came to New Orleans into the Whitney Bank building with his tobacco, his resins, his turpentine, his pine tree products, his wooden handle, the flour. He handled a company called Kershaw Manufacturing, which was a track lining company. He handled Jesco, and I don't know how we ever lost that because that was before me, but he handled Jesco, which today is Johnson & Murphy Shoes out of Nashville, Genesco. But anyway, he handled that. And so he left the railroad business, came down here and just took his business and became the Joseph Webster Allen Company, And there were many companies that came to New Orleans, many executives from the different railroads that came and did the same thing. Anyway, journey from office boy to CEO. Well, anyway, I had a little background. My dad was a customs broker and a freight forwarder. And another thing with Billy Yap, he's an open book. You know, there's not a secret I have. But my dad put me through, you know, school and all that stuff, but my dad had a drinking problem and he lost everything, you know. So when I got out of school, which is St. Stanislaus, which I graduated in 1961, I was going to get drafted. I figured I'd just go in the Army. So anyway, my mother said, you're not going to sit around the house, get drafted. And my brother Johnny said there's an office boy's job at Lusk Shipping Company. And Lusk handled all the Caterpillar tractors back then, 50-something years ago, and J.W. Allen. And I said, well, okay, I'll do that, no problem. I need some beer money anyway, you know. Beer was, Long Neck Dixie was 20 cents, man, you know. J.W. Allen paid me $40 a week, you know, but gallon of gas was 20 cents, you know, so. But anyway, so I went to Lusk Shipping and interviewed, and I went to J.W. Allen and interviewed, and I got a call. You got the job, come on down, you know. So that was Friday, and so Monday, I went to Lusk Shipping, and I sat in the office for about 15 minutes, told the receptionist that I was a new office boy. And Mr. Walter Flower, who owned the company, came out. And he says, son, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but we hired somebody else. We didn't hire you. And I said to myself, oh my God, I'm at the wrong company. So a CEO doesn't always start off, you know, knowing what he's doing, you know. In those days, they called you on the phone as Lusk, Allen, hey, they both in the same building, one on the 4th floor, one on the 7th floor, you know. So I sat there for 20 minutes, which made me 20 minutes late to get to the new job. So I walk in the office, and I said, hello, I'm Billy Yap, I'm your new office boy. And the man that owned the company who wasn't there was Hilarious Joseph Bernard Jr., Hilly. And he comes out, and he's a Marine that left in Pearl Harbor and went to the Pacific and didn't come back for 4 years. And he was a tough, gunny sergeant, you know. Well, anyway, he walks out of his little office and eats me from head to toe, you know. Tell me, I don't know what he told me, but I kept looking at him, and I said, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And I said one of two things here. I can walk out this door right now, you know, or I can look him right in the eyes, and I'm going to show that son of a gun that I just made a mistake, you know, and I did. And here it is, 60-something years later. But anyway, you know, we worked hard at J.W. Allen and Company. And that's really the key that we did, you know. And what did we learn to be successful? I guess the thing is what J.W. Allen decided to do is we were going to do business above and beyond the call of duty. I'm going to give you a couple of examples right now. See what I mean? Anyway, the example I'm going to give you the name, Diamond Fruit Growers out of Hood River, Oregon. That was a company that called me on a referral from Delta Steamship Lines, and they were shipping apples and pears, fresh apples and pears under refrigeration in rail cars going on a Delta ship into compartments. And the guy knew that his competition was also coming down too and shipping on the same vessel. And this was a break bulk vessel that had compartments, all right, where you could stick these cars into and carry them on down to South America. And they were really concerned, and they said, I don't want to get left on the dock, you know, because I know the vessel's tight and things like that. And I don't remember the guy's name. I usually remember names, even if it's 50 years ago. I said, don't sweat it. I'm going to go down on that dock, and I'm going to make sure your cargo gets on board that vessel. And that's what I did, you know. Back in those days, freight forwarders never left their office. But that man wanted, so, you know, value-added services, I didn't even realize it, you know. The next thing, Maywood Industries, a trading company, referral from Delta Steamship, because this guy was a trader, a food trader, and he was shipping turkey necks and turkey feet and all this stuff going to West Africa. And I got to know him, and I was always on the dock because when the trucks arrived, there was no warehouses or anything. They arrived and you had to put them right onto the ship, you know, and did a good job. Got to know all the Delta people and things. The next thing happened was Lewis Rich, a guy named Peter Pohl, used to supply the turkey parts for Maywood going to, and Lewis Rich had met, he was dealing with a company called, he was supplying all of Maywood's cargo. So he got to know me. And he introduced me to a company called Masala. And right then, it was after the, what's his name, Nasser was either assassinated or got put down in Egypt, and Sadat took over. And there were food riots because the people didn't get the food, so Sadat took the food out of the control of the government and gave it to his friends. And one of his friends was Mustafa el-Nagar, you know, and his son was Hamdi Mohammed, who had just graduated from San Diego State, lived in La Jolla, you know, and he came to New Orleans, and he wanted us to handle the business. Well, that evolved into handling, out of Tampa, Florida, 5,000 tons of break bulk beef liver. And it went on for probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years until things started getting a little shaky over there. But in handling that business, I met a guy named Rob Friedrichs, who was a chartering broker, a refrigerated chartering broker out of the Netherlands. And shortly after that, the Russians were going, had just found their freedom, so to speak, and they realized that, that capitalism is the way it goes. So Russia started started buying chicken lay quarters, and we started handling, we ended up opening offices in 4 cities. You know, the president of the company today, Jerry Becker, I hired him to go to work for us out of Houston, and I told him he'd come home every other weekend. He never came back for 2 years because the business grew so much. We ended up handling 300,000 tons of break bulk chickens one year. We were making money hand over fist, and I see I'm running on time here. So now, I was telling you before all the things that J.W. Allen needed to do to stay competitive, but we were making so much money off these reefer shipments that all came from a referral back in the 70s on some, and that gave us the capital to stay with the big multinationals and the couriers that came in. J.W. Allen and Company, and I hate to keep saying J.W. Allen comes up because I'm not just trying to blow my whistle up here, because there's many companies out there, but we went above and beyond, and we created revenue streams that other freight forwarders weren't doing because we went out of our office onto the docks, you know, and it made it happen, it made it work, you know. And that can go on and on and on and on. We ended up handling wallboard. We handled catfish from Vietnam, where we offering door-to-door transportation. You know, I traveled to Vietnam and went to Ho Chi Minh City, met with American President Oz, and then met with the line that would go all the way down into the Delta and carry cargo on these, look like Chinese junks, but they had but it worked and worked. And we did that. You know, we were offering door-to-door transportation from the Delta of Vietnam to Ho Chi Minh City, to San Francisco, or to Los Angeles on rail, to New Orleans, and then we'd take it to Baton Rouge. And, you know, the total logistic package, you know. And we just evolved into that. And, you know, the hardest thing John gave me was 30 minutes, and I'm already going almost on 45, you know, is to tell you what a freight forwarder and a custom broker is, you know. And it's probably, why would anybody work for a company going on 53 years? Because it's a fantastic industry, you know. It's fun. I've been around the world. I've been to Egypt. I sat on a camel, put my hands on the Sphinx. You know, I went in a pyramid. You know, I've done all these things. You know, handling cargo. You know, I've got friends around the world. You know, and where is the business going today? It's security today. You know. Everything, it's automated too. I mean, even J.W. Allen and Company, you're going, I welcome you. just to see what freight forwarders do, I welcome you to go to www.jwallen.com, and it tells you what freight forwarders do, and it tells you about our company, the things that we can do, you know. It is just a fun business. And where are we going? How to succeed? Think outside the box, what you got to do. You got to do that. Reputation. It's right and it's wrong. You don't even tell a white lie in this business because the customers trust you with multi-million-dollar transactions, you know. And if you tell a white lie, how does he know you're not telling a big lie? You know, you tell him like it is. He wants to know where his shipment is. If the ship just sunk, you tell him it's at the bottom of the Atlantic and he'll know how to deal with it, you know. Or it's lost, tell him it's lost. Be honest, never go away, you know. And I do have that reputation. People know Billy Yap, and they know Billy Yap is a straight shooter and an honest individual, you know. I've had some instances where, you know, I might have been challenged on something, you know, and gotten to the papers or something like that, and people would come to me and say, Billy, don't sweat that. I know you, man, and I know you wasn't part of all that junk going on at the Public Belt Railroad. You know, I was a commissioner there, you know. They knew it. Your word is your bond. When you tell somebody something, you make it happen because you gave them your word. And if you can't make it happen, you go to them and tell them what happened. And if you got to get your competition to finish it for you, let them do it because you may be bit off more than you can chew. It's never happened to me, but that's what I do. And Mr. Allen had a philosophy. No shipment is too big. See what I mean? I didn't know that was there. No shipment too big, and no shipments too small. And I'm going to end with this. You know, we have handled oil rigs. We've handled, I mentioned this poultry. 300,000 tons is 25,000 truckloads in a year out of 4 ports. You know, big shipments. We handle some big stuff, you know. But we also handle the little stuff. We're not too proud. We'll handle something that's a little too small. FedEx could handle that, you know. But something, we handle something that just came to my mind. I won't mention any names. But there was a couple of, 2 girls who graduated from Tulane, and they were into dressmaking. Excuse me. And they went to Asia. And they came back on the plane after they went to some shops so that people make dresses for them. They came back with a $10,000 bolt of some type of silk that there's no way you're walking into the United States with a $10,000 bolt of silk under your arms without clearing customs. They were all upset. Customs says, J.W. Allen's office are right there. Go talk to them. So they came in all angry. We got to do this and that. Ladies, settle down. You know, tell us what's going on. We did it. You know, we handled it for them. Today they have 4 dress shops, and we handle all their air freight coming from Asia with these dresses, and they ship these dresses worldwide by air. So that was nothing but 2 students coming in, and today they're good. Well, anyway, John, you got to have to tell me how to end this, or is there something else? Is there something else you want to know?
No. Well, we'll take
He says, no. You had 46 minutes.
No. The time is we're not constrained with time. A few years ago, I went to Australia, and a friend of mine is in construction business. They restore.
Come over here so you can be on TV.
Yeah. A few years ago, I went to Australia, and a friend of mine is in a construction business where they renovate old historic buildings. And I was at his parents' house, and they have just tons of this beautiful wood called Jarrah, which is one of the hardest woods in the world. And it's beautiful, dark, kind of mahogany-looking color wood. And my wife and I thought, we should ship some of this back to the United States so we could make a nice little butcher block for our kitchen. And so I took the wood and went down to the Pack and Send store in Fremantle, Australia, and I paid the shipper guy to send it to my home in New Orleans. Well, I get a phone call and say, you guys, you're trying to ship some kind of wood into the United States? I said, yeah. And the customs guy said, well, you can't just ship wood into the United States. It could have,
Weevils or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And they said, well, we're gonna have to confiscate it from you. I said, well, I spent a lot of money to ship that. You can't just take the wood from me. So I called Billy. I said, Billy, I got a little problem. And he walked me through the whole process, and to this day I got a beautiful Ojera wooden butcher block in my table. But Billy, I want to thank you, and I want to take some time for questions and answers. I'll start with the first question.
You got some shills out there. Right?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the first question. I guess, what advice would you give to somebody starting out their career right now? I mean, you ended your presentation with some really good tips to succeed. Mm-hmm. But if somebody is just heard about transportation, and they know transportation means trains and ships and buses and cars and highways, but they don't really know much about necessarily international logistics. Mm-hmm. What would you tell them to say, hey, this is why this is an exciting career in exactly what you do?
Why is it an exciting career?
Yeah.
It's an exciting career, number one, is because when you wake up in the morning and you go to work, you have no clue what's waiting for you, It's exciting from the minute you get to, not even work anymore, because my cell phone rings all the time and I'm reading emails all the time with the automation. But there's shipments going on all the time, and let me give you a quick example. Going back to that referral again, those same chickens, we got a call from a guy in the company. I'll give you an example. Call from a guy who wants to ship rice from Arkansas. He owns the mill and stuff like that, He came on a referral to us from one of these chicken people, and this guy has the mill, is going to have the rice, and he needs somebody just to handle the logistics, So the office, including me, is now working on arranging either by truck, bulk rail, hopper cars, or barge. We found the place that can bag the rice in Port of South Louisiana, and Christine and I are going to Arkansas to see the mill next week, to sit down with him and present him the package. Mm-hmm. I mean,
you're solving his problems.
We're solving his problems and understanding and learning things that we really didn't know too much before.
And growing his business.
That's growing his business. You make friends. How do you get into the logistics? It's kind of crazy. We have a position that's open now that we're advertising. And it's above entry, but you're not going to be in the vice presidency, but it's right there. That person is going to have to come in and learn, and we're not paying executive salary for them to come in and learn. But
what kind of skills are you looking for in a position like that?
Well, the skills that we always say, number one is, if you have a second language, you're blessed. Not required, but Hispanic would help. Number two is good common sense. The ability to work hard, and I mean work hard, and think out of the box, That's a skill. And if the person has experience, that's even better. If he doesn't have experience, this is not rocket scientist work, I mean, it's moving freight, you just learn. We teach you, we keep you away from the customers until you learn, because we don't want you making mistakes, but it's just the way to go. Now, you can go to the ports, you can go to the stevedoring companies. We didn't even talk about stevedoring companies. That's logistics, moving the freight on the docks, Get out there, get involved. There is a group now that started in the city by the Port of New Orleans, where come to them, and they will help you find employment, because we need good employees. I mean, 73 years old, what do they call it? The gray tsunami. Yeah, the gray tsunami going out, because we need young, smart people.
Any questions?
Being smart.
Yeah, I had a question.
You're a student too, right?
I am.
Welcome.
You mentioned that you had kind of built your reputation on the docks. And I was wondering, as things become more international and more automated, is there still that ability to be on the dock building your reputation, or where would you say are the docks today?
When I say the docks, we were going on the docks because they had challenges on the docks, and we needed to make it happen. I gave that example of, and this is a true story. I'm gonna get into a little bit more detail, but we have a prospective client that we hope to wrap up to be a client, who are farmers from South America with money, who have come up here into Arkansas and bought huge acreage. Rice farmers. They have enough capital to have their own rice mill. And they're going to be manufacturing, producing 100,000 tons of rice a year, of which 50,000 tons is going to go for export. That company came to us on a referral. And when I say on the docks, okay, myself and my sales manager were at the Port of South Louisiana, sitting down with them. And I know they package and bag sand there, totally automated, okay? And we sat down with them, can we take your other warehouse and convert that to a rice packaging facility, which they can do. And now they're putting the dollars together to see if they can do it. That's what I meant about, that same person called a multinational company and started talking to them about it at their headquarters in Colorado or something like that. They had no clue what they can do. So he went, found somebody that knew some people in New Orleans that could make it work. And that's what I mean by getting out on the docks, to make things happen, develop something. And I truly believe, as I told Pablo, in my office last week, let me tell you, Pablo, we're gonna make this thing work. We have all the tools, we've done it in the past. We've handled a lot of rice for Riceland Foods at one time, we can make it work. And I'm looking at him and I'm telling you, I'm the owner of this company. You don't have to go to a committee in San Francisco, We've done it, we can make it work. And there's two things. The company's been in business since 1932, and I've been here for 53 years. I own the company, the decisions are made here, and I'm not gonna do anything illegal or wrong because I don't want to put a company that's 80-something years old out of business, and I ain't going to jail, But speak to him and that's what I mean by getting on the docks or down to the grunt.
All right, any other questions? All right, Billy, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
This was great, thank you.
I must be allergic to something here.
Wow.
My nose never runs.
It's probably, I can't imagine it's dust.